When we built Ngā Mokopuna next door, where you were having your kai, we asked for it to be modelled off Maui, because Maui did many, many feats, and he was the youngest brother. And so our final distinguished alumni is kind of a bit like Maui. This award goes to Dr. Ratu Mataira no Ngāti Porou me Ngāti Kahungunu. Physicist Dr. Ratu Mataira is on a mission to harness the power of the sun, right here in Te Whanganui Atara. I think you might have to go back to Te Tairawhiti for that. Ratu completed his undergraduate degree and his PhD in applied superconductivity at Te Herenga Waka. By the end of his PhD, he had set the bar as the most prodigious student to graduate from Paiho Robinson Research Institute, the world leader in such technologies. Ratu leads OpenStar Technologies, a Wellington-based startup building a levitated dipole fusion reactor prototype. Fusion is the process that happens inside the sun and other stars when hydrogen atoms fuse to make helium, releasing tremendous amounts of energy. Recreating the process here on Earth is viewed as the holy grail of energy, with the potential to create vast amounts of emissions-free electricity. Multinational groups have been trying to achieve this same goal with massive teams and enormous budgets around the globe for decades. Can I invite the Chancellor and the Vice-Chancellor to come back and present Ratu with his award. Homai anō te pakipaki.
Ratu, when I told my friend John Campbell that I was coming to talk to you, he said, "Whoa, can you imagine how big his brain is?" That's the kind of thing. This is the power you scientists have over lowly journalists like us. But science was always the thing that turned your head from the get-go, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Tell me, what kind of kid were you?
I was definitely the kind of kid, I was always fascinated with how the world works, and it's always hard to tell that in a way that doesn't feel like a trope. But what I'd say is specifically is like everybody who's been on stage has some fascination with how the way the world works and has taken some view on that, right?
They have.
Comedy is a study of how people process all sorts of things that happen. For some reason, when I looked at the world, it kind of boiled down to two things, which is a bit weird. It was like physics, like, why do cars do this? Some of the really basic, boring problems like balls rolling down hills. But in some sense, like the mechanical aspect of my mind really gravitated towards that. And that was the way I engaged with the natural world, more than like biology or chemistry. That just happened to be me. But then the other side of it was economics and the relationships between people and how we've seemed to organise everything that we have to create the world kind of around us. And both of those things were there very early and kind of grew into something.
Well, and it wasn't so much somebody else who was very, very early in your life and not so much a science mentor, but rather a great dame. And she is, of course, the one and only Dame Kataraina Te Herenga Mataira. Yes? It was your grandma. Tell me, what kind of influence did she have in the approach that you took to becoming the scientist that you are?
I come from a pretty big family. I'm one of like 55 of her Mokopuna. And so I think there is very much just, we're all very lucky to have role models in our lives. And the role models who are closest to us, whether or not they're our parents or grandparents or our teachers, that proximity tells us the stories to focus on, and I can benefit as much from her story as anybody, I think. But for me, it's really encapsulated in her journey, where she's at university. The government releases this report that basically says that Te Reo Māori is going to go extinct because it's gone below the threshold of critical mass. And we've watched this globally happen time and time again. And her supervisor just put that report in front of her and said, what are you going to do about it? And the thing that I think I grew up with that story as a context. And then the other thing that I was growing up with, of course, was, a pervasive climate change issue, right? And really, it just came together as, this is obviously the thing for our generation, right? It's like, what are we going to do about it? And so I've been asking myself that for a long time, and to my mild dismay, there was a pretty obvious, I was given this amazing opportunity to do something about it. It might not be the thing that gets it done, it might not be the only thing that we need, but 100% it's something that we can do, and we're going to go do it. And so I think that's the influence she's had on me most.
You studied here at Vic, and did your PhD at the Robinson Research Institute. So how did that shape your thinking? Was that a lucky collision of life? I actually feel your life is all about collisions somehow.
You're the one who made the paintball pop up into the Sunday article. So what impact did the PhD? I've always been trying to push myself, and whatever I dedicated myself to, I wanted to make sure it was that opportunity. And for me, there's a couple of funny stories here. What one do I start with? I wanted to make sure it was an environment where I could basically tackle as many things as I could. I was at a stage of my life where I think I had kind of learned how to be an adult, got my work ethic together, and I just wanted to be somewhere where opportunities were everywhere and I could just pursue all of them as aggressively as I could. And that probably wraps up into the other funny part of the story, which is that I actually wanted to go study my PhD in America. I applied to Harvard, Caltech, Berkeley, Stanford. There's another one, I forget. They all said
MIT.
no. MIT, you got it. And the funny thing about that story is I remember sitting down with Nick Long, who is somewhere here, who is now the director of Robinson Research. And he asked me how the applications were going, and I said, well, I've got these 5 schools, and I've applied, and I listed them out, and he kind of looks at me in mild horror, and it's like, Ratu, most people have a safety school when they do this, just in case they don't get into one of the big names. And I just looked, Nick, you're my safety school. And there was utterly nothing derogatory about that. I was 100% convinced that Robinson, the work that was happening, the environment that I'd be able to put myself into, was exactly that environment I was looking for, where I would be able to hunt down all of those opportunities, kind of do the most that I could possibly do in that period of time. And kind of as an impact on me, I was testing a theory. Maybe this is classic scientist, but the theory was, okay, I've learned how to adult, I can kind of do all the stuff I kind of need to do. But if you chase down every opportunity, if you actually push yourself, if you try to take on those ambitions, does it actually pay off, or does the world just kind of slap you back constantly? And I think it paid off, and the theory was kind of proven right there, and it's just been positive momentum ever since.
You did mention paintball, and you did deviate into paintball company for a while there. Why did you do that? You were just clearing your head for a moment.
So I've just basically told a story about how I did my PhD and I was very successful and I chased down every single opportunity. I'm the absolute man, and now I'm sitting here getting an award. The story is not that linear, right? I skipped the triumphant portion.
I've got to bring you back here.
And so the actual story starts with leaving high school early because I had a falling out with my chemistry teacher, and my dean was like, oh, this isn't going well, so she sent me to uni early, which started off great and then started to nosedive. And actually, that same issue I was having with that chemistry teacher, the same issue that re-emerged at uni, was that I hadn't learned a work ethic. I was just smart, and I'd turn up to stuff and I'd kind of figure it out and I'd coast, and I actually had to leave university in order to build that work ethic. I did not have the correct relationship with academia because I had spent more than a decade coasting, right? And so I needed to learn that work ethic somewhere else. It was actually a classmate of mine in physics, a guy named Richie, and he had gotten himself into this paintball business thing, and he needed a business partner, and I needed a way out of uni. And so we teamed up, and we ended up opening a paintball field in the middle of Willis Street. It's now a food court, which is like way more beautiful, I must say. And that there wasn't anything clever I could do to get myself out of the problems that I had with that business. I just had to, the amount of sludge that you just have to scrape off walls and overalls that you have to clean, and drunk idiots who really shouldn't be there, but they're like way bigger than you because you're 19. Like,
there were no shortcuts.
There were no shortcuts. And the really lucky part about my life is that I came out of that experience in a position where I could actually go back to uni, finish my degree, get into the PhD, and make my way to where I am now.
I said to you earlier, Ratu, it's not the first time I've met you because I was producing a program, current affairs program, Sunday for a while, and we did a story about you, and our intro went like this. Imagine being able to harness the energy of the mightiest stars and power our planet, dramatically reducing the effects of climate change and running entire cities with just a few teaspoons of fuel. That was us trying to explain what you're attempting to do with your company, OpenStar. So you are now the founder of a nuclear fusion business, a startup, and it is doing something quite extraordinary. Can you please break it down in the simplest terms for our audience?
I'll try not to turn this into a pitch for OpenStar.
We can crowdsource if you want to. No,
that's
just
right. So that was a great summary. Fusion is the energy source that powers all the stars. All the energy that we use in an everyday setting is actually just fusion power that went from sunlight to plants to creatures and then or wind. And then some of those creatures got buried one day, and now we dig them up and we light them on fire. Fusion is a way of cutting out all of those middlemen and taking full control of that power for the benefit of humanity. The other sources of energy that we have kind of gotten us to where we are now, but the machine is starting to groan, as it were, right? And going back to the feats of Maui, the sun was the source of that energy to do the work that needed to be done, and it was not playing by our rules, right? It was erratic and doing all sorts of things and chasing after stuff. And Maui turned up to tame the sun for our purpose, and now the days are nice and regular. Fusion is just that quest again. It's that quest renewed. It's that quest in full realization of all the scientific and technical might that we as a people can actually bring to bear. Now that doesn't explain any of the technical aspects. So before anybody in the audience thinks that we've cracked fusion, we by no means have. OpenStar is one of 40 companies around the world who are now receiving private funding to actually tackle this challenge. We've all taken hold of different ways of doing fusion. We call them concepts. Some concepts are more mature, and therefore to make progress they cost way more money. Some concepts are less mature, more risky, but in that risk and immaturity is more potential, and the potential to kind of leapfrog the other concepts. And so the really amazing thing is that we had this chance to take one of these concepts with technology that was very uniquely Kiwi, and bring it back to life. It had effectively been dead globally for about a decade. Breathe new life into it and basically make the argument that it's one of these concepts that could leapfrog. It could actually make more progress faster than some of those bigger incumbent kind of approaches to fusion. And so to get into the nitty-gritty, it's actually 4 machines that we have to build. We've now built the first one and we're in the final stages of commissioning it. But it is 4 whole machines before the 4th one, which is actually a power plant. And so there is a road that we have to go through. This is not, I've solved it in my garage and I'm going to be a billionaire. People are knocking down my door. But I think we've done an amazing job at actually telling that story and really championing this concept and doing right by it as an idea and as an opportunity for humanity. And that's one of the things I'm most proud about.
You said 4 machines. I was trying to think, because we caught up with you in 2023. So how have you progressed in that time? Are you on track?
I'm a little bit behind where I thought I'd be.
Right.
And actually, I felt a little bit attacked when Di described himself and his father as rushers, because I was like, oh God, am I a rusher? Is that what I'm gonna learn? I'm gonna get.
I think you have to be.
Yeah. But I'm young enough to be a rusher, so I'm going to lean into it for a little while more. So we haven't made as much. I am being very honest here. Safe space. We haven't actually made as much progress on the machine that we're building and commissioning now as that I originally thought. When we put the pitch in front of people, we say we got it working for the first time in 2 years for less than $10 million, and it sounds awesome. I wanted that done for $5 million in 1 year, right? But I don't tell them that order of events when I'm asking investors for money. But nonetheless, even at that pace for 2 years, 10 million is still world-class, miles ahead of the competition. So it's still fantastic, but I'm a rusher. This is what we're getting. But the thing that we've made more progress on that I didn't expect, because I didn't quite know how to imagine it, is that if we'd spoken 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even been able to tell you it was going to be 4 machines. I didn't know what those 4 machines would do. All I knew was that there was one machine that needed to be built to kind of bring the thing back to life, and would figure out the rest later. And it turns out that we actually had to put a decent amount of effort into figuring out the rest. Later came sooner than I expected. But we can now say what those 4 machines all are, what their purpose is, commercially, from a raising capital perspective, from a technology perspective, from the kind of teams that have to be built around those machines. And that's what investors and governments and employees, joining the team, that's what they all want to see, to know that they're actually joining a pathway that actually makes sense.
Is there anything that is really freaking you out about the near future?
I actually can't get into too many details. Do you mean OpenStar or just in general? Because David's...
You can take it whatever way you want. I was kind of talking about OpenStar, but go for it.
I actually can't get into too many details right now, but I remember when I got the call for this award, I knew the state the company was in, I knew all the technical work that was being done, I knew all the planning and commercial work that we were doing, and one thing was very clear. By the middle of September, things were either going to be bloody awesome at OpenStar or freaking terrifying. And I would have to sit on the stage getting an award talking about it in one of those 2 universes. And I can't get into the details, but we're pretty confident we live in the very good universe, not the very bad one.
Can we just have a round of applause on that?
Zero details.
Great. That is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that you just said there, Ratu. And we want to celebrate the fact that you're a rusher. We want you to rush as hard as you can to the future and make it a better place for all of us. Thank you for the work that you are doing. Congratulations for being recognised for the outstanding achievements that you have come to. Thank you. And can we have a round of applause?